I have the honor of presenting the 2025 Janet Spragens Pro Bono Award. This award was established in 2002 to recognize one or more individuals or organizations for outstanding and sustained achievements in pro bono activities in tax. This year, the committee selected a group rather than an individual for the award. Founded in 2019 by tax section member Chuck Hodges, along with CPA James Freeman, both of Atlanta, Georgia. The organization is Filing for Freedom, and it is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides free tax preparation services for military personnel and first responders who sacrifice so much for all of us in their communities. Chuck and James originally started the organization inspired by a powerful speech to the Atlanta community by then Commissioner Chuck Rettig, whose son serves in the military. Tax return preparers who were taking advantage of military personnel and charging excessive fees is what Chuck Rettig talked about, and knowing that the military personnel needed their refunds quickly, especially those going overseas. And Chuck challenged the tax community to do something with our talents to help those military families. This year's award recipients quickly mobilized their extensive networks through local bar and CPA associations and partnered with the IRS, the Department of Defense, and the Atlanta Police Foundation. They also garnered the support of corporate sponsors like the Atlanta Braves, Coca-Cola, and Chick-fil-A to ensure that their financial needs were met for the long run. Filing for Freedom began in its operations at Dobbins Air Force Base and quickly expanded to in-person services to first responders. After operating for several seasons, they broadened their operations to provide virtual tax filing assistance to several bases spanning several states and branches of the military. Each year, they recruit and train their volunteers, which are made up of CPAs, attorneys, and others, who certify through the IRS's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, VITA. And Chuck Hodges says that volunteers, of course, are the heart of their program. They are professional, dedicated, and willing to not only give their time, but their knowledge and expertise so that they can provide free tax preparation services to military personnel and first responders. To date, military families have collected in excess of $1 million in refunds thanks to Filing for Freedom return filings. So it is now my honor to present the 2025 Janet Spragens Pro Bono Award to Filing for Freedom. Fortunately, longtime section member and co-founder of Filing for Freedom, Chuck Hodges, is here to receive the award. Unfortunately, James Freeman could not be here, but Chuck will receive the award on behalf of the entire Filing for Freedom team. So Chuck, can you come up and get the award? And I am now going to get out of the way so Chuck can say a few words.
I'm not really good at saying only a few words, but we'll try. 2019, Chuck Rettig did, as it was just shared, came to Atlanta, and after giving this powerful speech, said, hey, do something for the military, whether it be buying their Starbucks if they're in front of you or just saying thank you when you're in the airport, but do something. Then after that meeting, as the chair of the Atlanta bar, people said, we got to do something. And I was like, what? And they're like, you figure it out. And so of course I immediately thought, I'm like, okay, maybe we could do a tank car wash. I was going through all these things. But then I looked it up. And the two things that military families that scare them the most, wills and taxes. Okay, I can't prepare my own will, so it wasn't gonna be helpful there, but I did help them get to that. But then it's taxes. So then in a collaboration with the Georgia Society of CPAs, Filing for Freedom was born. And so, but I didn't know what I was biting off. All of a sudden, we needed a place at Dobbins Air Force Base. We needed security clearance. I needed volunteers in Atlanta, Georgia on spring Saturdays when everybody's kids are playing baseball and soccer. And so we started that first weekend in February of 2019. And I remember going in after looking at how many hours I had to spend to just have that day, and 10 people for the military signed up. And so I thought, have I created a solution to a problem that maybe doesn't exist? And so I was like, but that's okay. We'll do it for this weekend and then I'll move on. And then Jonathan came in. Who's Jonathan? Jonathan's a 21-year-old reservist. He's in the reserves at Dobbins. And he came in, and because Jones Day provided all the equipment, I had the printer. And so I was the reviewer. One person prepares a return, one person reviews it. And I reviewed the return, and I looked at Jonathan, this 21-year-old kid, and I said, gosh, $1,600 refund. That's great, Jonathan. And he looked back at me and goes, yeah, that's what that person said over there, prepared this form. I don't want that. And I thought maybe he meant I don't want it directly deposited. And so I was like, well, they can send it to you in a check. And he goes, and he starts getting up, he goes, no, sir, I don't want that. And then I realized what was going on. Jonathan knew nothing about our tax system. So I took he was like, my mom always told me that as long as I got one of these forms, which was a W-2, I didn't have to do anything else for taxes. And so I walked him through each item in his W-2 to where he then understood it. And then I said, Jonathan, have you ever, and he, by the way, he was a busboy at a very prominent restaurant in Atlanta. So he actually did pretty well. I said, Jonathan, have you ever filed a tax return? He said, no. So I contacted the IRS, who has just been amazing help. And I said, can I file his prior returns? And she said, yes. And so we filed 2 more returns. And so then he came in the next month. And then instead of 10 people, he had gotten the word out. We had 30 people. But he came back that next month, and I showed him, and he was due over $5,000 in refunds plus interest over the last 3 years. Well, then he started crying. Well, I'm used to my clients crying because of the result they got in their case. But this one, he was crying, and I go, Jonathan, wait, there's no crying in tax preparation. I mean, there's just not. And so he said, well, I support my whole family, and we only have 1 car. And this is gonna allow us to have another car. And so then I realized that we were really helping these families understand taxes, the basic tax concepts, they're easy for everybody in this room. But it terrifies those people who protect you and protect me. So please get out there and do this. We have the way to do it, because I will tell you, once you start, then all of a sudden, we said, hey, we should get t-shirts. We were getting phone calls from sponsors. This is our t-shirt. These are our sponsors. So our sponsors, guess who made the t-shirt? The Zach Brown Band. So then we got it our first year, and I got a very tough call from the Department of Defense that said, hey, we saw your t-shirt. Why isn't our logo on there? I go, wait, what? And then the IRS said, wait, you have to put our logo on there too. Tell me a t-shirt you've seen with the logo of the Department of Defense and the IRS. So at the end of the day, we have, for these people, we've collected over $1 million in refunds. We have done well in excess of 600 returns. And we're gonna keep going, and we've expanded, and we'd love to expand to yours. It's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Thank y'all.
Well, thank you, Chuck, and thank you, tax section. Hearing stories like this makes me so proud to be a tax section member and so happy that I am a tax lawyer. A lot of people think tax is law for the rich and only the rich have tax problems, but you all know that that's not true. We know that that's not true, and I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause for being members of an organization that commemorates this kind of work and that allows this kind of work to go on. So thank you.